Hello, I'm Esther Gido-Ewart. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. It's game on as the U.S. Republican and Democratic vice presidential nominees prepare for their one and only debate Tuesday night in New York. Israel unleashes a series of aerial attacks in Lebanon. One kills Hassan Nasrallah, a high-level Hezbollah commander. And Oxfam says it is being undermined by what it calls a global oligarchy of the super rich who exert control over the global economy. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. Just one day before the one and only U.S. vice presidential debate hosted by CBS News, both the U.S. Republican and Democratic nominees are making their final preparations. VOA's Veronica Balderas-Iglesias looks at the policies J.D. Vance and Tim Walz might focus on and whether the debate itself could impact the outcome of the presidential race.
Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance recently shared what his primary message to voters will be when he debates Democratic rival Tim Walz on Tuesday.
That the candidacy, the team of substance, the team that actually has a record that we're proud of instead of we're running away from, and the team that actually has a plan is the team of Trump-Vance.
Republican Representative Tom Emmer has been helping the Ohio senator prepare for the 90-minute debate that will be hosted in New York by CBS News.
He can talk about the economy that Donald Trump fixed and that Harris and Biden broke. He can talk about the border that Trump fixed and they broke. And once he understands that Tim Walz is just going to try and deflect and go into this folksy whatever, he'll hold him accountable.
The Minnesota governor has also been reportedly sharpening his debate skills. His messaging to voters often centers on how consequential the November 5th election is.
It's all on the line, not just for the next 4 years, but for the next 40 years.
Reproductive rights will probably be one of Walz's strongest lines of attack against Vance, says John Mark Hansen, political science professor at the University of Chicago.
Vance may be pressed on whether, as president, Trump would sign an abortion ban or a very, very short period where abortions could be performed nationwide.
Voters shouldn't expect the VP nominees to provide a breakdown of their campaign's proposed policies, Hansen noted.
The debates are always more show than they are substance. The candidates have become very, very skilled at pivoting away from the question they were asked and instead addressing an issue that they want to address.
Voters who tune in Tuesday could get a sense of whether the vice presidential nominees provide them with a sense of comfort. But unless there is some kind of meltdown, Hansen says it is not likely the debate will move the presidential race's needle. Veronica Balderas-Iglesias, VOA News, Washington.
To the Middle East now, where an Israeli ground incursion into Lebanon may be imminent. Meantime, Israel unleashed a series of attacks in Lebanon and killed another high-level Hezbollah commander. The strikes aim to further rattle Hezbollah after airstrikes that killed the group's chief, Hassan Nasrallah. VOA's Arasha Basadi has the story.
Smoke still rises Sunday from what's left of high-rise apartments after an Israeli strike in the suburbs of Beirut on Friday. The Israeli military says it was targeting the leader of the U.S.-designated terror group Hezbollah. The group on Saturday confirmed the death of its leader, Hassan Nasrallah. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu labeled Nasrallah as someone set on destroying Israel.
Nasrallah was not another terrorist. He was the terrorist. He was the axis of the axis, the central engine of Iran's axis of evil. He and his people were the architects of the plan to destroy Israel.
Meanwhile, Hezbollah's biggest backer, Iran, raised a black flag atop the Imam Reza's shrine following Nasrallah's death. The sign of mourning came as Hezbollah issued a statement saying Nasrallah joined his fellow martyrs, while vowing to, quote, continue holy war against the enemy and in support of Palestine. As hundreds of families now sleep in the Beirut streets, joining what the Lebanese government says are 1 million displaced people, the Israel Defense Forces released a series of videos claiming to show strikes against dozens of Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. Israel says it warned civilians to get out of the way, but the country's leader blasted Israel's offensive.
Unfortunately, the law of the jungle that controls the world has made the Israeli enemy stall all efforts for a ceasefire and continue its war against Lebanon because it does not care about the law or international legitimacy.
Overnight attacks this weekend continued in Beirut, prompting concern for what may follow. Meanwhile, hundreds of demonstrators in Baghdad protested Nasrallah's killing and attempted to breach the fortified Green Zone in Iraq, home to the U.S. Embassy.
We're watching this very, very closely to see how, if and how, Hezbollah and or Iran may react, as well as the militia groups in Iraq and Syria. We have to be prepared for some sort of response. We have to make sure that we are ready, and we are. We believe we have the force capability we need in the region, but it's not clear right now. Too soon to know.
Lebanon's health ministry reports more than 1,000 Lebanese dead and 6,000 wounded in the past 2 weeks. Lebanon began firing rockets into northern Israel after the October 7 Hamas terror attack on Israel triggered the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.
For more on the Israeli airstrikes that killed Hezbollah's Secretary General Sayed Hassan Nasrallah, I'm joined live from Wynwood, Pennsylvania by Professor Russell Stone, former director at the Center for Israel Studies at American University. Raz, what do you make of Israelis' airstrikes on several fronts, the killings of Hezbollah's Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon, airstrikes in Yemen, and the ongoing battle with Hamas?
Well, we're in unknown territory in terms of the conflict right now, Esther. It's clear that the successful targeting of the Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah was a major accomplishment of Israeli military tactics. In terms of the strategy behind it, it remains unknown. Unknown whether this will silence rocket attacks on Israel and permit residents to return to their northern border homes. Unknown as to whether it will affect the war in Gaza, where recently we have not seen additional rocket attacks. Unknown whether the Houthi striking capability from Yemen toward Israel, there were at least 3 rockets launched over the weekend, whether this attack will affect all that or whether it will result in increasing conflict.
Raz, do you see an end in sight when you look at this war where Israel probably should be concerned that other actors like Iran are also threatening to attack the country?
Well, I don't see an immediate prospect for ending the conflict, but you're correct that it's a much wider series of issues. All of the fighting groups that I mentioned just now are proxies of Iran. And what pressure can be brought upon Iran by the international community or by the threat of Israeli or international attack, including the nuclear capability within Iran. These are all open questions right now.
And very quickly, Raz, what can the United States do to quell this crisis?
The United States has to work on multiple levels. American diplomats in the Middle East are being threatened, so that has to be reinforced. The United States, which has always stated that it has Israel's back, has to continue providing at least defensive arms. The arming for the Iron Dome system that Israel maintains against rocket attacks requires constant rearmament from the United States. At the same time as the United States has to try to work with other international allies to try to broker some kind of at least ceasefire and, in the longer run, a more lasting peace. We don't know.
Ras, many thanks for your insight. Professor Russell Stone is former director of the Center for Israel Studies at American University.
The United Nations Security Council today extended its authorization of the multinational policing mission in crime-ravaged Haiti. It did not call to transform it into a UN peacekeeping mission. As the Port-au-Prince government had suggested, the resolution adopted unanimously expressed deep concern about the situation in Haiti, including violence, criminal activities, and mass displacement. The mission is extended until October 2nd, 2025. The Kenyan-led policing mission aims to help the Haitian National Police to take back control of areas under gang control. The head of the U.S. Africa Command is warning of a growing Islamic State presence in northern Somalia. General Michael Langley, the commander of the U.S. AFRICOM, sat down for an exclusive interview with VOA Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb, who asked him about the growing security concerns in the Horn of Africa amid increased tensions in the region and an upcoming pullout of troops with the African Union transition mission in Somalia at the end of the year.
I am concerned about the northern part of Somalia and ISIS growing in numbers.
How much have they grown in that area?
Oh, wow. They are, in the past year, it's probably grown probably twofold. I won't give numbers, but it's more than what it was last year.
So that's very concerning. Does the U.S. believe that the leader of ISIS Somalia, Abdul Qadir Mumin, is the global leader of ISIS right now?
We have to take it as credible. So we're just watching that closely as far as who is the overall leader, and if ISIS professes that, we got to take that seriously.
The Horn of Africa is in turmoil right now due to the differences between Somalia and Ethiopia. From a national security perspective, how does this affect the war against al-Shabaab? There's
limited operations with the Ethiopians at this time. Time will tell if they can settle their differences, and because when they do work together, they're very, very effective at clearing out al-Shabaab. The unknowns are who are going to be the troop contributing country to the awesome construct, the transition from ATMOS to awesome, and that starts at the end of the year. In the ATMOS construct, one of the anchor and frontline countries with Ethiopia. So that's what has me concerned, because Ethiopia, especially in the southwest state, and their contributions to the liberation and stabilization has been valuable.
General Langley, do you think that U.S. forces may be needed during that transition from ATMOS to awesome, or even after that transition, to try to supplement the security as they're trying to bring forces out and pull forces in?
No, that's not my mission. That's not what we're there for. All of our initiatives and our approach on the African continent with our African partners will be Africa-led and U.S.-enabled. So our piece of enabling is not our boots on the ground. We're there to advise and assist and assist in the training, but the fight is theirs.
I want to follow up about something that senior defense officials told VOA in June. They had said that the Somali National Army's Central Somalia campaign had put al-Shabaab on the back foot. That was the term that they used for the past 2 years. But then al-Shabaab had in about 6 months reversed those gains this year. Is that what you see?
Well, they're still building the Somali National Army, so as they go on offensive operations, it is stress on the force. As they clear and liberate a region, you have to have a credible holding force there so stabilization activities and efforts can initiate and in turn the populace and faith in the federal government of Somalia with the services they provide. So that's a very fragile period. And if they can't sustain that because they're moving to the next region or next district, it ebbs.
So that was what was happening.
Yes, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing ebbing and flowing.
They couldn't hold the territory that they had gained.
Right.
And that's where your training is coming in to try to get them ready and sped up to be able to hold that territory.
Exactly. It takes time. It's an investment to build an army.
So even with that assessment with the struggles in the central Somalia region, even with ATMOS moving out and a new force yet to be determined moving in,
yes,
you have still said that you are, quote, cautiously optimistic that Somali forces will be successful against al-Shabaab.
Well, we are at an inflection point. This is unknown territory, how they're going to navigate this transition. Yes, we need a credible holding force. However, when I say I'm cautiously optimistic, I'm looking at the whole of government effort. Every time I go there, stabilization activities are increasing. Activities that USAID has put forth in their efforts of working with civil society organizations to hit those benchmarks of stability.
For more insight into AFRICOM and the situation in East Africa, let's go live to viewers. Carla Babu is standing by at the Pentagon. Hello, Carla. Fascinating conversation there. Did he mention what threat he thought was most concerning in the Horn of Africa?
Well, good evening, Esther. Yes, he did. I asked him about the most concerning threat in all of Africa, and he said that that was in East Africa, particularly looking at the instability that could emanate from the Houthis, especially those waterways, those critical waterways in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, coupling that with the increased tensions, with the efforts that al-Shabaab is making in that region, and how the Somali government is trying to prevent these two from coalescing. He is watching that and saying that that could be very concerning. That could turn this area into a really bad neighborhood very quickly. And with the Houthis being emboldened after their attacks on different vessels, and with al-Shabaab being emboldened as they've been able to increase their recruiting efforts, thanks to the disagreements between Ethiopia and Somalia, Puntland and Somaliland, he looks at that and says that that is something that could go south very quickly, and he's very concerned about that.
Certainly, yes. We'll be looking and watching that, Carla. Thank you very much for your reporting. Carla Babu talked with General Langley about West Africa as well. We'll have more from that part of your interview with head of U.S. Africa Command on Tuesday. The charity Oxfam says they are being undermined by what it calls a global oligarchy of the super rich who exert control over the global economy. The organization accuses it of exacerbating problems like extreme inequality and climate change. Henry Ridgewell reports.
The United Nations General Assembly aims to provide an equal platform for leaders to discuss the most pressing world issues like poverty and climate change. But a new report from the charity Oxfam says the annual meeting is overshadowed by what it terms a global oligarchy controlled by the ultra-rich and mega corporations.
They're shaping the rules in their favour. And they're doing so at the expense of ordinary people, and that in turn is fueling inequality within and between countries.
Oxfam says we are living in an age of extreme global inequality, where the world's richest 1% own more wealth than 95% of the rest of humanity.
We live in a world in which mega corporations, so many of them are paying next to or little to no tax, basically.
Brazil, which currently holds the presidency of the G20, wants to impose a 2% minimum tax on the world's richest billionaires, which it claims would raise up to $250 billion, a move backed by Oxfam and many other NGOs. The plan is backed by other members, including South Africa, Spain and France. But US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen spoke against the move at a G20 meeting in July.
Tax policy is very difficult to coordinate globally, and we don't see a need or really think it's desirable to try to negotiate a global agreement on that. We think that all countries should make sure that their taxation systems are fair and progressive.
Oxfam says tax revenues in the global south, meanwhile, are increasingly spent on servicing debt to private creditors like banks and hedge funds. The charity also accuses large pharmaceutical companies of shaping rules over intellectual property rights to benefit their shareholders. Oxfam says this meant poorer nations struggled to access coronavirus vaccines, even though billions in government funding went to developing them.
That's the money that, we put into our tax systems to be able to get there. In fact, decades of investment went into getting mRNA in the first place.
Responding to VOA, Pfizer said the company had offered its coronavirus vaccine at cost price to poorer nations, but that many richer countries moved faster to purchase the available doses. Pfizer's chairman also warned that losing intellectual property rights would disincentivize anyone else from taking a big financial risk in developing such vaccines, a view echoed by other large pharmaceutical giants. Henry Ridgewell, VOA News.
Still to come, we'll tell you about a program that offers talented Kenyans access to STEM graduate programs right here in America. We'll be back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Mudu, in Washington every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
In other news, the United Arab Emirates Foreign Ministry said Monday an attack on its ambassador's residence in Khartoum by a Sudanese military aircraft has caused extensive damage to the building. The UAE is condemning the action as, quote, a heinous attack. Sudan is denying the claim. Founded in 2018 as the Kenya Airlift Program, the program aims to offer bright, talented Kenyans access to STEM graduate programs in North America and bridge the gap between global education opportunities and local ambition. VOA's Paul Ndiho joins us now with a special guest. Hello, Paul.
Thanks, Esther. The Kenya Airlift Program has grown and evolved, rebranding itself as the International Scholars Program to serve a broader international audience. Since its inception, the program has facilitated millions of dollars in unsecured funding, tuition, living expenses, relocation, scholarships, and grants. The program has over 2,000 members, placing more than 500 students to top American universities. Joining me in the studio is Bob Mwiti, founder and managing director of the International Scholars Program. Hello, Bob.
Hey, hi, Paul.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about your program.
We are the International Scholars Program. We started in 2018 as the Kenya Airlift Program. And basically what we do is we finance brilliant students who want to pursue graduate programs here in the US. And mostly we focus on STEM master's programs.
Interesting. From nearly maybe a few students when we last talked to 500 students coming to United States here. What an incredible achievement.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, actually when I was last here, almost 6 years ago, we had very few students. Right now we have about, we've actually been able to facilitate over 500 students to the US. We have a community of about 2,000 members into the program. So we've grown quite a lot.
How are you able to do this? Do you provide, how do you get the money to pull off something like this?
So basically what we do is we help students in financing the process of studying here in terms of their tuition and living expenses. For that portion, we have a financing partner based here in the US who is able to give us the money. And of course, also we are able to work with the universities here in the US, about 25 of them, that help us with giving us grants and tuition fee waivers for our students. And also, additionally, also we do help students with the relocation process, that process of leaving the country and coming to the US requires money, about $5,000. So we are able to facilitate that directly through our company. And of course, also we are able to help the students in getting graduate assistantship awards and grants and all that through the partnership, the partner universities that we normally work with.
It's like a dream come true for a lot of younger people across the continent who want to come to the United States. You told me earlier that you've since then expanded this program to bring more people, more students from across Africa. How about that?
Yes, so we started with Kenya first, and then we started seeing a lot of interest from students from other countries. We've had students who joined the program from Tanzania, we had students from Zambia, we had students from Sierra Leone. So we decided, it's not a Kenyan affair anymore. We just want to expand the program to, to support other African students and actually other international students. So we opened it up this year and we rebranded the program into International Scholars Program, basically so that we can be able to accommodate all the students.
Yeah. So what's in it for you, and how do these students pay? Do they pay you at the end of the day, or you facilitate everything and maybe you charge them a fee for helping them out?
Very, very good. So normally, as a company, we charge a consultation fee for somebody to join into the program. But then again, because normally the process of studying here is quite expensive. Typically, a student will need around 50,000 to study here. Then that process of coming is usually around 5,000. So they don't really have to worry about that. So what we do is we facilitate all that. But initially, for them to get into the program, they have to pay a consultation fee of $1,100.
Very briefly, who does the visa processing and all the schools applications and all that stuff?
Well, actually, we handle all that. It's not just, for us, it's not just a matter of financing, but actually we still do support the student throughout the whole process, because also the issue to do with visas can be a bit challenging. So we normally prepare them for them to go to the embassy knowing what to expect in terms of the visa interviews. And of course, also even that process of applying to schools, and when they come here, we also make sure that all the logistics are taken care of in terms of the accommodation, the flight, taking care of the air tickets. So we do all that. So the student don't really have to worry about, they don't have to worry about all that. And that's in addition of getting them the finances that they needed for their tuition and living expenses.
I wish I was one of those students who benefited from your program. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Bob Mwite is the founder and managing director of the International Scholars Program. Esther, back to you.
Thanks, Paul. We end our show on a sad note. Basketball Hall of Famer Dikembe Mutombo, one of the best defensive players in NBA history and a longtime global ambassador for the game, died Monday after a battle with brain cancer. The DRC native was 58. For more news, visit voaafrica.com. And that's our show for today. Thank you for watching.